I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, February the 21st, where the board killed the Northern hopes of getting significantly more money for their cattle. This week we saw the Southern Plains sell just a buck higher at 120, and we thought maybe they'd get a little bit more, but turns out they probably did as good as they could, because the rally we've had for about the last week on the board petered out on Thursday, and then the Northern hopes of getting $2 to $3 more on a dress basis did not happen, and they sold those dress basis cattle mostly steady. But coming to you here from the Northern Hotel in Billings, Montana. Realize the lighting's not the best, but this thing was built in 1902, but very nice, right down here in downtown Billings. Had a nice afternoon on Thursday there in Malta, Montana, at the Jim Shoemaker Memorial Ag Day in Phillips County, and a good crowd there, and had a good talk, and going to be here this weekend for the winter thaw event with the U.S. Cattlemen's Association, Montana Farmers Union, Montana Stock Growers, and then early next week going to be at Miles City Livestock Commission there over in Miles City before I head back home. But you look at kind of what was going on around here late in the week. We've got a cattle on feed report coming out on Friday here. Of course, there's going to be bigger numbers on feed again. The inventory for February 1st, as kind of estimated by your top analysis people in the industry, they've got it pegged at 102.4, and this is reported by Erner Berry there, and 102.4, so bigger again, and we're expecting that. We've got a lot of cattle on feed, but most of them are in the middle of their feeding program. We don't have big numbers towards the end, close to the show list, and we don't have big numbers just the last couple of weeks, but you get several weeks in for a couple months there, we've got a lot of big numbers to come out this summer, and it's going to pressure the market big time. And there's about as many people that think we're going to see some recovery before then as there is people that think maybe that little bounce we've had the last week is it. And I'll tell you, if this little bounce we had the last week is it may be tough to hold these fat cattle over $1 very much this summer, because if we're not getting much market position right now and they keep whittling on them whenever we start to see heavy show lists, it could be kind of a tough summer. But you look at your placement expectations for January, your feeder cattle placements are expected to be just short of 102 at 101.9, kind of a wide spread between those that put their guesses in from 97.8 all the way up to 103.5. Marketing's at 101, so that helps a little bit, but shouldn't be a big shakeup unless they miss it, and wouldn't expect them to miss it very far this time. That's kind of looks pretty reasonable what they've expected so far. But you look at the board on Thursday, February live cattle futures down $1.20. That kind of hurt because we'd been seeing some nice gains coming along, and we thought maybe we were going to recover all of those losses that we saw that kind of came as a result of that coronavirus deal in China that's bothered us the last couple of weeks. But as of Thursday, I don't know if it's profit taking or the little jump just kind of ran out, but February live cattle futures ended the day on Thursday at 120.10, which prompted the rest of your trade in the northern feedlot areas as they got closer, kind of a flush basis there. April live cattle futures down $1.65 at 119.15. That hurts your out front contracts on your live cattle. We're all down from 70 to $1.37, so didn't see much help there. March feeder cattle up 2 cents at 140.80, and even though we're not in the contract month, our feeder cattle prices have been launching cash-wise, and your board's not going to be able to get too far away from that. April feeder cattle down 50 cents at 142.52. Out fronts on your feeder cattle also down pretty good from 72 cents to $1.10 lower. Your fat cattle trade, it was just the northern areas had just a touch of cleanup or some stuff that didn't get turned in from Wednesday on your southern plains, but we have seen our fat cattle trade. Wouldn't expect much more cleanup trade to happen on Friday. one note of interest, the voluntary report that comes out from USDA Market News, used to call it the checkerboard square before I turned it into a PDF report, was the voluntary calls that we have that come in through USDA. Didn't even put the report out. Had trade on Thursday, didn't even put the report out. So that just goes to show you there's no more interest in voluntary reporting of feedlot sales anymore, and only on mandatory price reporting, which we're starting to see some people wanting to have 2 bits put in on the reauthorization of your mandatory price reporting. A lot of interest, especially in the Midwest, would like to see more information coming through. Iowa confirmed sales on Thursday in Iowa, about 3,700 head, and 117 to 120 and a half, mostly all at 120, and that's the same price they got in the Southern Plains, and that would actually be a buck higher, and the Southern Plains was a buck higher too. So not a bad, not a complete washout on your fat cattle trade. We did gain a little bit of ground. Your dress sales, though, is what was disappointing. Your dress sales in Iowa ranged from 190 to 191, but mostly 190. Nebraska had confirmed sales on Thursday of 12,300 head from 118 to 120, which is kind of unevenly steady to a buck higher, as we did have a spread on your live sales in Nebraska last week. But your bulk of your sales in Nebraska were evenly split between 119 and 120, so that's fairly disappointing there. But your dress sales in Iowa entirely at 190, and you would have thought they could have gained at least a buck or two in a few places on the dress trade in the north, but did not do it. I had just a trickle of trade in the Southern Plains, like I said, that went ahead and come in on Thursday, but likely happened late on Wednesday. But what was interesting was to see the week-to-date volume out of those areas. Kansas only 2,600 confirmed on Thursday, but week to date 19,400 head. Pretty good movement in the Southern Plains, all at 120, which is a buck higher. Texas even reported 700 head, and Texas has been printing for the last few weeks. They're getting a little more play from additional packer there, but 7,400 head week to date in Texas. That's pretty good for no more cattle than Texas sells negotiated, but also at 120, a buck higher. Box beef cutout values continue to fade. Choice cuts on Thursday afternoon, 204.50, that was down $1.07. Select 201.60, down 16 cents. Choice select spread just under $3 at $2.90. Your slaughter, your packers have really whittled down on the slaughter. They've almost cut out your Saturday kill entirely, but it's still significantly better than a year ago. But 474,000 through Thursday is 8,000 less than a week ago, but still 35,000 more than the same week a year ago. And we need to keep keeping that significantly higher than a year ago, and keep harvesting through these cattle. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Got a lot of good quotes for you. Your real-time index with DV Auction late in the day on Thursday at 142.23, gaining another 63 cents, gaining significant ground every day this week, and on a 7-day moving average, that's pretty significant to continue to gain that much ground, but going to be quite a bit higher for the week. Your big sales on Thursday, winter livestock in Pratt, Kansas, 2,900 head there. Feeders, the steers were steady to $2 higher. Feeder heifers, $2 to $4 higher. Not a very good test of light calves. They sold pretty well, but just a kind of a poor comparison there, and not really a good way to look at that market. But farmers and ranchers livestock in Salina, Kansas, 3,800 head. They've had good weather up there in northern Kansas, and have brought a bigger run of cattle coming in. Light comparisons though from last week and the previous week, but steers were as much as $3 to $4 higher. Heifers as much as $5 higher. Mitchell, South Dakota, big sale there, 5,700 head in Mitchell, South Dakota. Feeder steers there, $1 to $3 higher, with spots as much as $8 higher on your heavy 7-weight steers. Feeder heifers steady to $5 higher in Mitchell, South Dakota. Your big sale on Thursday, Ogallala, Nebraska. Ogallala livestock had 5,800 head there, and huge advances on the trend just from last week, and they had a pretty good run last week. but the market reporter there called your steers from $2 to $16 higher, heifers $2 to $14 higher, and when I pulled up the automated market report from DV Auction there, I really can't disagree with that much. Just saw huge gains in there, even on the weighted average prices. So Dwayne Mays had a hell of a sale. Ogallala, Nebraska. Let's look at some of your best tested weights on steers. Over 1,050 head of 5-weight steers. This is all of them, guys. The average 559 at 180.09. Your weighted average price on all your 5-weight steers. Unbelievable. That was $12.50 higher than the weighted average from just last week. Over 1,300 head of 6-weight steers in Ogallala, average 644 at 164.99. That was over $9 higher. Wow. 746 head of 7-weight steer calves in Ogallala, average 734 at 155.40, and that was well over $9 higher on the weighted average price. You think they're not keeping heifers out in western Nebraska? Look at your heifer quotes. 563 head of 5-weight heifers, average 549 at 164.22, just short of $7 higher. And 625 head of 6-weight heifers in Ogallala, average 645 at 148.56 on all of them. Big stick out quote. And I tell you what, you know, we used to always say, or a lot of guys said it, I never did like that quote, that there's no premiums in feeder cattle, there's only discounts. That's wrong. We've got some programs here that are bringing big premiums to your feeder cattle, guys, those that want to go through the work. Not on balling calves, but if you got hard, long-time weaned calves or yearlings that are in a program, especially if they've been weaned and turned back out, or even backgrounded cattle that's been turned out. But the NHTC non-hormone treated cattle are bringing big premiums where they're offered. If they got the paperwork in order, they've got the verification there, and everything's right. But look at this big string here. 162 head of NHTC steers in Ogallala, weighed 712 and $166. Wow. Look at Mocan Livestock Market in Butler, Missouri. Jim Herzog and Sons. You get the Kansas guys, the big grazers, they like to go east just over into Missouri. And if you haven't gotten cattle out of Missouri for the last 20 years or so, there's no more shoeshine blacks in Missouri. They've got as good a cattle as they've got anywhere. It just depends on the condition on them. But at Mocan, they had 51 head, 549-pound steers, bring 184.75. That's impressive. But my big stick out quote for the day on Thursday come out of a market way east that we're getting information out of, and we can get information out of sale barns basically anywhere if they've got a computerized clerk system. But look at Abingdon, Virginia, Tri-State Livestock. And they're selling the big strings of feeder steers there as high as they are in a sale that can look out the window behind the block and see feedlots right there. Abingdon, Virginia, which is southern Virginia, just north of Bristol, Tennessee, 119 head of 848-pound steers bring 133 1/4. And that's your feeder flash for Friday.